Hi y'all, I'm Mick Seppala. I'm going to talk about this book here, Crumb's Kafka. This book was actually written by David Zan Mararowitz, but it was illustrated by Crumb. Crumb is a comic book artist, kind of outsider, proto-punk. Had a kind of devious sense of humor, and had a lot of kind of body humor in his illustrations, but he's a very good, very expressive illustrator, deceptively simple in the way he depicts form. Kafka is known as a surrealist writer, and Kafkaesque is synonymous with a kind of mystery, a kind of technocratic mystery, cosmic bureaucracy, like in his book Metamorphosis. A man wakes up and finds that he's turned into an insect, and his family has to learn to adjust to him being an insect, and he has to learn to live his new life as an insect. And there's a kind of technical mystery, a kind of technical unknown to it. In the trial, a man is called to a court, and he is, but he can't find the judge to be declared either innocent or guilty, so he's forever in this in-between of judgment, and so it's a kind of uncertainty, a technical uncertainty. Kafkaesque means this kind of technical uncertainty of the bureaucratic, like a cosmic bureaucracy of existence. But there's an interesting part in this book where they're explaining what Prague was like during Kafka's time when he grew up there, and this legend of the Golem, which is a kind of it's a kind of Frankenstein in Jewish folklore. And I'll just read some of this. Under his feet, speaking of Franz Kafka, as he walked, were the bones and spirits of 7 centuries of Jewish mystics, Hasidic scholars, secret Kabbalists, astronomers, astrologers, mad rabbis, and other visionaries who in their time rarely had the right to live outside the ghetto or even to leave it. This Prague had its own Talmudic saints, none more well known or revered than the Rabbi Judah Lo ben Bezalel, aka the Moral, acronym for Most Venerable Teacher and Rabbi, who was the ghetto's chief sage and spiritual leader at the end of the 16th century. Lao, philosopher, astronomer, natural scientist, astrologer, was the very image of the Renaissance humanist. The Moral held 2 contradictory principles, which he tried to reconcile. There was a horizontal or human power in the form of science, creativity, tolerance, and doubt. In confrontation with God's absolute vertical power, which reduced man to dust and insignificance. Being a Jewish scholar, the question he raised in regard to this contradiction could only lead to the raising of other questions, which is what Jewish wisdom is all about. It is also whispered that the Maharal played around with forbidden fruits, like the secret text of the Kabbalah, which, from the essence of Jewish mysticism, whose meaning are chiefly symbolic and only accessible, if at all, after years of scholarship. In the Kabbalah, the letters of the Hebrew alphabet were imbued with magic powers. According to the Kabbalistic expert Golem, such mystical impulses have all but vanished, but they still remain an enormous force in the books of Franz Kafka. And here we have the illustrations, R. Crumb's illustrations of the Golem. And Rabbi Laurel, well, we'll see how this works. These forbidden scriptures featured in the most famous of all Prague legends, one firmly associated, rightly or wrongly, with Rabbi Laurel. Golem is, in effect, the Jewish Frankenstein monster, a heap of clay imbued with life by its creator, having immense power, but only able to use this power within prescribed limits. Legend has it that Rabbi Laurel, in order to give life to the inert heap of clay, writes the Hebrew letter E-M-E-T-H, truth, on its forehead. Golem then becomes a kind of servant and protector of the ghetto. But of course, it's not allowed to work on the Sabbath. So the rabbi, every Friday night, is forced to erase the first letter alphabet, leaving meh and teh, which together in Hebrew spell out meth, or death. Then on the one Saturday when the Maharal has forgotten to erase the first letter, and we see what's going on. Rabbi Laurel arrives from the synagogue just in time to remove the letters and thus take life away from him. Golem collapses on the ground. He becomes brittle and begins to disintegrate, turning into what he had been before Rabbi Laurel summoned him to protect the Jewish community. Golem, Laurel says, and then we have an illustration of Rabbi Laurel speaking to the youth of Prague. Don't forget this event. Let it be a lesson to you. Even the most perfect golem, risen to life to protect us, can easily change into a destructive force. Therefore, let us treat carefully that which is strong, just as we bow kindly and patiently to that which is weak. Everything has its time and place. This was not the end of Golem. His remains were reportedly left in the attic of Antonu, Old New Synagogue. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, but if you've seen pictures of Prague or you're familiar with Prague, you know which synagogue this is. one of the most sinister looking buildings in the Prague ghetto, where the defunct creature supposedly rests today. The entrance to his room sealed off for all eternity. Never a practicing or religious Jew, and rarely mentioning the ghetto legends in his works, Kafka would have had no way of avoiding this fantastical imprint on the social memory of a Jewish boy in this time and place. So, the premise here being that these folklore were an influence on this kind of technical surrealism of Franz Kafka, and it's just an interesting background into Prague and Jewish folklore. So that's all. Have a nice day.